Joining me now, Democratic Representative Mike Honda of California, who was sent to an internment camp when he was 9 months old and lived there from 1942 to 1945, and Representative Jerry Nadler, a Democrat of New York. Congressman Honda, let me begin with you. What was your response when you saw this statement that was put out by the mayor of Roanoke?
Well, I was very, very saddened by what he had said, and the things that he said was very inaccurate. First of all, he called the Japanese Americans Japanese foreign nationals, and we were actually U.S. born citizens. 120,000 of us, 2/3 of us, were natural born citizens, and the rest of us could not become naturalized citizens because there were federal laws that prohibited that. And so, it was either a comment that was out of ignorance and just needed more information, or he's just not well informed.
Congressman Nadler, there's been a lot of discussion about how the U.S. reacted to the possibility of accepting Jewish refugees, and particularly around 38 and 39. There's generally this rule of thumb, it's called Godwin's Law, right, that you shouldn't be invoking the Nazis to make arguments in present day. Is this a fair parallel to draw at this point in time?
Well, I think it is a fair parallel to draw. It has nothing to do with the Nazis. It has to do with the reaction of Americans to refugees, in that case from the Nazis, in this case from ISIS. And the hysteria was similar. These were people in desperate need, and people wanted to reject them on the grounds that maybe they were, in this case, terrorists, in that case, communists, or whatever. In 1940, President Roosevelt proposed a bill to admit 20,000 Jewish children who might otherwise perish in Europe over quota. It was rejected by the Congress after a congressman from Mississippi got up on the floor of the House and said that there may be 20,000 cute kids now, but in 15 years there'll be 20,000 damn kikes. And that was his direct quote, and it defeated the bill. And so it's the exact same hysteria.
Congressman Honda, it seems like the rhetoric in the House and on the campaign trail has gotten really, really ugly, if I can say that.
Sure.
Are you having conversations with your colleagues over there about, are you sure you want to say what you're saying? Do you recognize how history might judge some of the things that are being said in the people's house right now?
No, I haven't had a lot of conversations with those who have been saying that, but there's been a lot of talk among our own colleagues who of the same mind. Today we have about 14 Asian Americans in Congress, where in 1942 there was 0. And so we're talking among ourselves about how we're going to approach this situation. And I think that we have colleagues like Jerry Nadler who understands the situation. And, Jerry is very, very correct that in 1939, this country rejected 900 Jews who were coming here as refugees, and we turned them away. Just as today we're trying to turn away Syrian refugees from this country. This is not what America's about. This is not what our character's about, and also our Constitution is also one that we really have to be cognizant of. The fact that 120,000 Japanese were put into camp was a breach of the constitutional protection, and that created a lot of discord in the Japanese American community, just within ourselves, because there were some of us who wanted to prove that we're 100% Americans by responding to the draft, and there was those who said, I will respond to the draft if you release my parents from an unconstitutional incarceration, and then if you do that, I will respond to the draft. And so even to this day, we have discussions among our own communities about what happened to us by the government in 1942. So we really have to be vigilant about what it is that we're all about, and the Constitution is our basic anchor.
We have a history in this country.
Nadler.
We have a history in this country, in times of war and in times of crisis, of reacting in panic. The Japanese incarceration was one panic. We usually end up apologizing about 30 years later. Congress formally passed an apology and compensation in 1988 for the Japanese internment. It was 40 years later. We had the Alien and Sedition Acts. We rejected refugees. We passed the the racist Immigration Act of 1924 designed to cut off Jewish and Greek and Italian and Eastern European immigration. The Almanac of American Politics wrote that if a racist, xenophobic Congress had not passed that act in 1924, maybe 2 million of the 6 million Jews who were murdered by the Nazis would have been in the United States instead. So we have a history, and we should learn from that history. Right now, we should look where the threat is. You know, 7 of the 8 culprits in Paris were French and Belgian nationals who can come to this country without even a visa. And the danger is from people like that, or from people here who are radicalized, not well-vetted refugees. Refugees are fleeing the people that we're against. They're fleeing the tyrants and the murderers. Them we should help. We vet them. We make sure nobody is dangerous among them. The danger is people who are here or who can come here without any vetting.
Yeah, I think Jerry's right in pointing out that acts of terrorism precipitates this fear against people that we're not familiar with. Pearl Harbor precipitated the incarceration of Japanese Americans, just as the bombing in Paris has precipitated in this country a response, a negative response against Syrian refugees in this country. And I think that's got to stop. And our system's working in terms of vetting the Syrians that were here. They've been here since 2011. We've been receiving the Syrian refugees, and not one has performed any acts of terrorism.
All right, Representative Mike Honda and Representative Jerry Nadler, thanks to you both.